to introduce Hope Carey to you. She's going to be talking to us about healthy living for our brain and body, tips from the latest research. And so Hope is the CEO of Coastal Senior Consulting. She's also a senior advisor at the Senior Solutions Network. In addition, she's a licensed real estate agent, combining her passion for senior advocacy and services with her successful approach to real estate profession. She's also experienced in the senior living industry. She was a regional director for the Senior Resource Book. If you don't have that, it's an amazing resource book here in Sarasota. The Senior Blue Book is a comprehensive, I just said this, senior resource guide to all types of services and solutions, as well as they also have a variety of educational offerings as well. Hope holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Kentucky. That's the state we haven't covered yet. And so an MBA from Western Governors University. It is my great pleasure to introduce Hope Carey.
Thank you.
So good.
I got my technology here, so let's hope we keep a signal. So when I start speaking, people are like, why does a real estate agent talk about this stuff, right? So that's part of my life. Part of my life is a consultant for assisted living communities for families that are navigating this. And why that is because 26 years of my life I worked in some sort of long-term care. I worked in assisted living, I worked in skilled nursing, and I worked in hospitals. I also worked for the Department of Mental Health as a peer-to-peer specialist. And the goal as a peer-to-peer specialist was to help other people who were navigating the systems that served them understand what the resources were available, how to tap into them, and make sure they're making efficient use of their time as caregivers by tapping into the resources in your community. Why do I do that? The same reason everybody else that you've heard up here so far does that. I have a family. My mother has 11 brothers and sisters, and 7 of them have been diagnosed with dementia. Yep, that's a pretty staggering statistic for a family. We have lived through a lot of pain, a lot of drama, a lot of navigating systems that we didn't really understand. It has taken a toll, and the goal from all of that is to give back to the world and to make the people that are navigating these systems better advocates for themselves and the person that they love by educating as much as we possibly can and volunteering our times, when I say our, that's Senior Network Solutions, in any way that we can to help people. So I want you to know that we're here as part of a larger community. I see a lot of the people in the community who are wonderful, talented, educated people that are here to pull together to help you all. One more thing before I get started is we were talking about validation earlier, and we were talking about hope. One thing about hope through this journey is learning that the love that happens in these moments that you're experiencing right now is that my hope for you is that you cherish each moment. One of the best things I ever heard families that I've worked with, I've done support groups for going on 20 years now. Some of the women that I've worked with, I'll ask them, looking back now, what's the one message that you want to get across to other people as they start this journey? And they said, love the moment that you're in. Because the next moment to come is going to look different, and you don't realize how much that engagement, the involvement, that there is joy in it. And I know it doesn't feel like that. So the other thing I want to do about validating how you feel is, I'm a caregiver. I have 2 special needs kids, and I was the caregiver for my grandmother with dementia all at the same time. I was in support groups. I was looking at a therapist going, what do you do when you have more than you can handle? There is hope at the end of this journey. And the hope is going to be that you find peace in yourself and acceptance as you walk this, and surround yourself with other people who get what you're going through. Build your team. So that being said, the joy in all of this also is that no matter what your research is showing about your genetics, what they have shown is that through lifestyle changes, we can offset some of what we know are contributing factors. So we talked about that a little bit earlier, about the genetic testing that you can do, about the fact that you're scared when you're a family member. So take control of your life. Take control of your life by knowing educating yourself on what you can do right now to make that change. The Alzheimer Association, look at that, look at what it says at the top. Identify reasons for taking care of yourself as you age. List the strategies to age well in the following areas. Those things that you've always been told, your mama told you to do, are the things that you need to do. Physical health and exercise, diet and nutrition, cognitive activity, social engagement, and making plans for your own healthy aging using your brain and body tips from the latest research workbook. And all of these resources are available online at the Alzheimer Association. So aging well depends on your genes, your environment, your lifestyle, and lifestyle choices. Help keep your body and brain healthy. The brain is the control center of the body. So this is one of those things when we're talking about how dementia looks, that when we were talking about the fact that it may not just look like memory loss. Earlier in the diagnoses, or way before a diagnosis, there are a lot of other things that are happening. Your brain is your master organ. It controls everything. So before we get to the point of having memory loss, there's a lot of subtle changes that may be going on. Why is that? Because there are 1 billion nerve cells or neurons creating and branching in a network. Affects every part of your body. You don't step unless your brain tells you to step. You don't eat unless your body feels that it's hungry. So somebody who has the diagnoses also may be affected in a lot of subtle ways because the messaging in their brain is affecting the rest of your body. Signals traveling through the brain for memories, thoughts, and feelings. And Alzheimer's disease destroys brain cells. So what does that tell us about functioning? If your body controls everything, how are you going to be affected? Not just in your memory, but in everything else too. It doesn't sound like a lot of hope, but we're going to get there. So the heart and the brain are interrelated. So whatever you do to protect your heart also helps your brain continue to operate at its best. The brain needs blood flow. The brain depends on oxygen and adequate blood flow to work well. And 25% of blood from every heartbeat goes to the brain. So let's imagine this, right? Healthy diet, heart-healthy diet. It's affecting the well-being of your heart. It's also affecting the well-being of your brain. So I don't want to read this verbatim, but we're going to kind of hit on this because I think the understanding and the education of what has happened to this point and what you can do yourself is important. So we talked about earlier that dementia, the overlying category, is caused by a lot of different diseases and conditions. We know that it is not part of normal aging. We've already addressed that today. And that Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. Alzheimer's disease has a set of criteria to meet that, but there are lots and lots of other diagnoses. So one of the main things that I think is important for people in educating themselves is understand some of that too, because if you're living with someone who has some of the symptomology of dementia, to learn what it is, what form of dementia it is, the better the treatment can be. Well, the question was, how do you do that? So there are lots of people that are involved in this type of research. One we talked about earlier, we talked about Ross Camp, and that neurologist is one of your best go-tos, especially neurologists that specialize. So let's go back to this. Known risk for Alzheimer's disease includes age, genetics, head injury, have we heard that before? Cardiovascular factors, and few years of formal education. Therapies for Alzheimer's can treat symptoms but cannot cure, prevent, or slow the disease progression. And I do want you to feel free to ask questions along the way because we want this to be interactive. If we're hitting a point that you're like, okay, hold up, let's talk a little bit more about that.
How does education affect that? That makes sense.
Well, your brain is a muscle and an organ, and it's exercising. So even the cognitive therapies that you can do to increase the brain flow and the blood flow of that is that if you look at the demographic of people who have used their brains, lots of study, etc., is that that's affecting your blood flow to your brain. You're working it like a muscle, so that's part of what's happening there. Is that exercise, when it comes to brain, looks a little different. Using it. Use it or lose it, is what you hear people say. Does that make sense? So taking care of yourself as you age through cognitive activity, that's what we just spoke about, was brain exercises, physical health and exercise, diet and nutrition, and social engagement. Is this surprising anybody? So physical health and exercise. Let's go along with this and we'll pull things. We've known for years that the body and the brain are connected, correct? We know that what happens with this affects your brain. Obviously, physical exercise, moving your body, getting your blood flowing, raising your heart rate, engaging in physical health is going to be good for your brain. As we age and take care of our bodies and our brains, many of these things, many of what we're going to see as we age are typical declines in our body. So as we're working on our body, we're also working on the brain. The main thing behind that is the blood flow to the brain. Exercise, even in small doses, even 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, has shown to improve cognitive abilities. So get out there and exercise.
It's surprising how you can easily build up habits of just taking 15 to 20 minutes out of your day to go down, hit the treadmill, and just do it. Just do it. Just get on it, put my headphones on, and just walk at a nice brisk pace for myself, build up a quick heartbeat, quick sweat, and it's amazing how quickly I can go from 15 minutes to 20 minutes, and then over time 30 minutes, and over time 40 minutes. Before you know it, you're up to 45 minutes of walking, and even at a higher incline and also at a higher pace. And again, it's all about incorporating habits in the choices that we make.
So what you just said is the same exact thing I talked about. Get moving, get your body moving. It is about the oxygen in your blood that is now feeding your brain. This is something that we can take control of, even in small doses. Even if you get up and exercise for 15 minutes, you have just made a decision that changes your life, that it increases your heart healthiness and your brain healthiness. Simple steps. So here's where our hope comes in. Small things that we can do to change our life. Do something you like. Start out small. Move safely. Get your heart rate up. Ask friends to join you. I love this part of it because we talked about two areas that can help us stay healthy. One of those is socialization. You're combining two things here. Take a walk. Join your friends. The emotional aspect of having other people join you, like I said, build your team. The emotional aspect of having people that are joining you and you are all caregivers. Take a walk with somebody, talk about stuff. You can have a support group in the form of a walking group, right? Some of us walk across the bridge here in town and we talk about things. That's my support group. And check with your doctor before you start. This is important. When you're putting together your team, everybody that is in your sphere of life is part of that team. The interconnectedness by the pieces of the puzzle that you need to do together, your doctor is part of that team. Get a good doctor. Somebody was saying earlier, if you have a doctor that tells you, listen to what they're saying, they may not be the right doctor. You want the doctor who's going to look at you holistically, socially, emotionally, physically. So here we go, back to some things that's not going to surprise anybody, but very, very important, right? Physical health and exercise. What can we take control of today? Stop smoking. Avoid excess alcohol. We could go into a whole thing about what's excess and what not, and what's not. This whole presentation is all on the Alzheimer Association. Read the data. get adequate sleep, avoid head injury, manage your stress. Woo, that's a mouthful right there if you're a caregiver, isn't it? What does every single caregiver I've ever met suffer from? Stress. Stress. There are lots of support groups. I cannot be a bigger proponent of support groups because we are better together, stronger as a team, and when you have other people who understand what you're going through, it does help with the stress. I'm just going to throw that out there. Treat depression. Our bodies weren't necessarily wired to be on go all the time, to be hypersensitive to everything that's happening around you. Cortisol is flooding your body as a caregiver because you're on alert. What happens when you hit that point that you're overwhelmed? Do we see depression in caregivers? Absolutely. Absolutely, of course we do. So be aware of what's happening to yourself because you've heard the statistics on what happens with caregivers. Depression slips in and sometimes it doesn't look like what we consider depression. Sometimes it can be simple things as not having an appetite that you used to have or not wanting to do the things that you used to do. Depression is predominant amongst caregivers, but treating yourself, taking care of yourself, and there's a book called Take Your Oxygen First that I would highly recommend to anybody. Take your oxygen first. And visit your doctor regularly. We talked earlier about how a lot of caregivers start putting off things that help them. How many people are taking other people to the doctor? A lot. Right? And probably aren't prioritizing to take yourself to the doctor when you need to. The best thing you can do as a caregiver is take care of yourself. So, back to physical health and exercise. Monitor your numbers. There are a lot of good electronic products out there now that you can wear right on your wrist that can look at your own numbers. On that note, and I'm going to do a little improvisation myself right now because I work with a lot of caregivers. Those wearable products can also give you some peace of mind for your loved ones because they allow you to remotely monitor not only whereabouts, whether the blood pressure is raised, some of them even do sugar. So there's a way that you can oversee and let go a little bit at the same time. Because what are you going to be learning as caregivers? That lovely balance of taking care of yourself and taking care of someone else too. I want to put in a little pitch for wearables. They are super helpful. So the things that I talked about monitoring, blood pressure, blood sugar, weight, and cholesterol are all contributing factors. Diet and nutrition. Do we have any questions about diet and nutrition? This is always a really fun topic. So let's talk a little bit about diet and nutrition. Because as a caregiver myself, I told you I was caregiving for my grandmother and three kids with special needs at the same time. Did my diet look good? Was I making healthy meals? No, honestly, sometimes I was not. Would I have been in a little better physical shape myself had I been? Absolutely. Diet and nutrition. Those things that we've always talked about. Fruits and vegetables. If you go to any of the other seminars in town, like there are certain things Gray Matter does a lot of. Every year they do Gray Matter with Ross Camp, and it talks about what the scientists are seeing. Alzheimer Association does the same research about what we're seeing that helps us stay healthier. Fruits and vegetables, cut back your meat, stay hydrated, limit your alcohol, stop smoking. Dark chocolate. And again, use a team. Have someone help you plan your meals. Cut vegetables, have them ready to go in the refrigerator so that when you're in the midst of, oh my God, I have to have some sugar because I'm crashing, grab something healthy. One of the things I do want to talk about when we talk about diet, because there's a lot of conversation going around about the different diets that may or may not be dementia friendly. So there are two diets. One of them is called the DASH diet. Has anybody heard of this? So the DASH diet, this is evidence-based study that shows that the DASH diet helps you monitor blood pressure, cholesterol, all of those things that we need to monitor. DASH diet has evidence-based proof. And the other diet that I'm going to really talk about is Mediterranean diet. Has anybody heard about the Mediterranean diet? So these are two diets that, again, have been studied. The evidence shows that they can see improvement in all of those systems that we need to manage. So there's a lot of evidence out there about those two diets.
Foods that have been shown to lead to healthy aging would be fruits and vegetables, and in particular green leafy vegetables and berries, as well as limited intake of high-fat food items that you get through high-fat dairy and cheese and red meats, and also healthy vegetable oils. So this would be, olive oil would be a good example, have been shown to reduce your risk of heart disease as well as dementia.
Does that surprise anybody? Harder to do, right? In the midst of caregiving or in the midst of life. We've got socialized patterns that we have. But the thing about it that is really hopeful is that it's evidence-based. They've studied these diets to show for sure, we're not just guessing, that they help your overall health. I don't have to go into this too deep. Again, we are going over things that we know, but to constantly reinforce how we can take care of ourselves, super important. Yes, sir?
Himalayan sea salt. The Himalayan salt, is that also considered negative in your diet?
So I'm going to dance around, and I'm not going to act like I'm a nutritionist, but I am going to say salt is salt, and there is a degree of sodium in it. So, like everything, things in moderation. And you know, if you are doing some of the things we've talked about previously, monitoring your blood pressure, then you're going to see an effect. Himalayan salt, salt of any kind, does have sodium in it. Just be careful and take it in moderation.
On the diet issue, will you be covering something on how we can help Alzheimer eat better because they want to avoid the food? Sneaking?
So did you hear this question? So the question was, will we be talking about what we can do to help the loved one eat a better diet? So this is something that is continually talked about, and part of the reason, and I don't think we go into it in this because this is more geared toward taking care of yourself, but your taste buds change as you get older. So guess what? Most people, the last to go, the sugar. That sugar's good, right? Because I can taste it, right? So back to the conversations we were having earlier. I have bargained with people before. I worked in standalone memory care for almost 10 years. A lot of times family members are recognizing the same thing that you're eating, is that the diet is not what they would like it to be. So this is my own opinion. I want to throw this out there. We got a catch-22 thing going on here. You have someone who now has a diagnosis of a brain that's failing, and they love to eat hot dogs every day. Is that a battle I'm going to choose? I want to throw that out there. Are we going to reduce blood pressure? Are we going to do some of those things by making sure we get a healthier diet post-diagnosis? Yeah, we are. But I think one of the biggest things I've learned through this 26-year journey is choose your battles too. So it's a combination of both. If I'm eating hot dogs every day and it makes me happy, I'm not creating dementia, right? Like I said, my own 2 cents right there. But encouraging, distracting, even having food available outside the vision where you can see it, is that I've had people tell me, my brother doesn't like peas. This is an exact verbatim conversation I had with somebody that moved into one of my communities. My brother doesn't like peas. He was eating peas that evening. This is an ever-changing environment. What's happening? Taste preferences, choices are changing, and some of those may be out of habit. So what happened with the brother who was eating hamburgers every night and he suddenly had peas in front of him? Did he eat the peas? Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
A couple things, this is Amy, a couple things that I think we've already talked about that may kind of help with us. One is, we may not want to ask our loved one, would you like peas for dinner? I know my answer. And if we think about it, that no is one of the first things we learn in our development. So instead of asking, take action. So to say, here's your dinner. Jade also talked about cueing. So by having certain things that cue, having the plate set up, you joining them, joining the meal instead of asking that question. I hope that's a wonderful example because maybe something that I never ate in my entire life, maybe something that I'll eat as part of the disease progression. So I think a couple of the key things, in addition to these basics that for all of us, meals that our loved one can manage themselves.
Yes.
We talked about the importance of having our loved ones be as independent as possible. So things that they can handle themselves, sometimes finger foods. Ideally, we want them to eat as healthily as possible. And I'll also say that this is a progressive degenerative disease.
So she's talking about the
So
same
it's
thing I
that
am.
balance, it's that balance. We talked a lot earlier about not getting into kind of those arguments with our loved one. Ever have a discussion about food with maybe a younger child? These green beans are good for you. You need to eat them. Okay. So by just having it, modeling things, you know what? I'll bet you I never eat peas, but heaven forbid it could happen. I think those are the things. And balance in everything. You know, we want to have balance in everything. And good common sense. We're all really smart people here, and I think your good common sense will drive you.
So on that note, things that we have seen happen. Just gonna throw it out there. Where you live with one person diagnosed with dementia, I may have for 9 years lived with like 70. So let's talk about things that we may see happen. Sitting at the table, we've got a plate of green beans and I'm like, dang, these green beans are good. Sometimes that person right with me is eating green beans right along with me. It is partially sometimes about what we are modeling. It's what we think is going to happen because it has been previous interaction may not. And I don't want to downplay the fact that people are going to be in different places in their diagnoses and how this looks different. But the world is now changing daily, and what preferences are also changing daily. And a lot of times it is the camaraderie of the sitting at a meal together and what you're modeling that does help. I hope that answers the question. Is that okay? So, on to the next. Consult reputable sources about dietary supplements. We're all a little faddish, aren't we? The latest diet, the latest craze. We are a world that is a capitalist world. So if there's a new product that is promising, that is going to make us magically healthier, this is why you want to make sure that you're checking reputable sources. Dietary supplements, vitamins, they can work with or against different medications, and they can also be the latest faddish craze. When we do education series about dementia and diet, there are people that I've watched try things because they hope that it helps. What helps is what we talked about earlier, eating a balanced diet, your good old fruits and vegetables. Those are the things that help, and getting the exercise. So do check that, because I think I went into a man's house not too long ago and he had all these brain healthy vitamins sitting on his cabinet, all the way across his cabinet. And I was like, ay, what did you want? So just check reasonable. Cognitive activity. So here's another one of those conversations that we have a lot. Does it work? Does cognitive exercises work? We've already addressed that a little bit, right? The brain is a muscle. Exercising your brain. Learning new things. These are evidence-based things that there is information to prove that if you exercise your brain, it does increase your cognitive abilities, staying socially engaged, having conversations, use it or lose it. So, I'll just read what it says here. As you use your mind in new and challenging ways, your brain actually begins to form and nourish new pathways for connections among the brain cells. This is true. This is true that it happens. It's why you see people living longer if they're working longer, why they're in social environments or staying healthier instead of retiring early, because you see people that are cognitively engaged more on a daily basis, is that exercising your brain does work. Studies have been done in which some people engage in cognitive activity by playing games or reading materials that was challenging for them. I've even had people, sometimes we do technology classes, so it's interesting. Technology is a big learning curve for people who've never done tech. We did Facebook classes, you remember Pam? We did Facebook classes, so take on something new that you've never done before, because the challenge to your brain makes your brain think differently than it does before. There is, Amy and I've talked about this before, and I won't go really deep in it, you can form new neural pathways. The brain does continue to grow and change.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If anybody is interested in doing something to add probably the most holistic type of activity, start with music.
Music.
Music is a long-term storage as retrieval, and usually anything that's emotionally connected is still there. So
Absolutely.
in addition to neuroplasticity, it just brings up so much that's part of the novelty in a person's
The hypothalamus is the emotional part of the brain. One of the last things to go with Alzheimer's and dementia is the hypothalamus. Why? It's the emotional part. We retain emotional memories much longer. So that's when you see people. I have watched people who haven't spoken in years who can sing every word to a song. It's beautiful.
Leave off the last lyric.
Yeah. These are games that we can play and that you can spend time with people that you're with, because it's emotional.
And just
Music stirs us.
Don't do it with just headphones. Try and make it as social as you possibly can.
This is so true. Music is one of those therapeutic tools for all of us, right? So you guys know. So I talked about a little bit about the neural pathways. I want to bring this up, and I'm going off script a little bit too, but it was one of the best things I ever heard. We used to work with a lot of really good neuropsychologists, and I was listening to a neuropsychologist train a bunch of people one time, and he was talking about family therapy, and he was talking about therapies with spouses, and he's like, fake it. What are you talking about? He's like, the best thing that people can do is fake nice. Why? Because it trains your brain to go down a new pathway. So what he was talking about is husbands and wives in the midst of engagement, is that if they started learning to go, if they're thinking, if they start going, honey, you are so beautiful right now, try it. So the neural pathways are a beautiful thing. Sorry, that to me was always hilarious, because, but it's the same thing as caregivers. As we talk about joining the journey, getting on the train together with them, is start thinking about it differently than you have in the past. Is that if this particular thing, I had an adult daughter one time was like, Mom wants to write Christmas cards every day. I'm like, write Christmas cards every day. Make it an exciting activity. Go with this different flow than we're used to going with, because guess what? It's going to make your brain better too, because you're going to start thinking differently than you do right now. Engaging in formal education will keep your brain healthy and can provide protection against developing dementia. There are a lot of resources here in Sarasota County where Sarasota and Manatee County both, that you can take education classes. So if you want those resources, let me know. I'll tell you where some of those places are in town. Free classes, low-cost classes, just to continue your learning.
One of the most interesting factors is cognitive stimulating activities, which basically for us just means mental processing of information. It can be from a book, it can be from the radio, it can be a magazine, it can be from a lecture, it can actually be from watching TV. All of these things require processing information. And the old adage of, use it or lose it is actually something that turns out, at least from the observational data, to look like it's true. So numerous studies now have shown that being more engaged in cognitively stimulating activities is actually good for maintaining cognition. And it's true in late life, and it's true in early life. And so what we recommend is that you start early, and if you're already late, start now.
So there you go, right? If you start a new activity, so what do you get? You make your brain stronger. If you do it with other people, you're building social connections. And if you're exchanging communication, you just get 3 of the benefits that I've already talked about just by starting something new with other people. So we're seeing some hope, right? So social engagement. Social engagement I cannot say enough about. As again, I've worked in this field for a long time. I have seen people who were at home. So we've heard some stuff about communities today. I want to talk about the other side of the coin. Is that people who may be isolated at home, who are spending time at home, and caregivers that are holding on, adult day programs, respite programs, all of these are things that bring something to the table that you cannot on your own. As caregivers, historically, we are tired and we can't engage to the degree that we want to. And what I have seen and what I can attest to is what I'm going to call that silver lining of all these programs is social engagement. I have watched people blossom like flowers with social engagement. What we know is that social engagement for yourself, and for others, is that serotonin is going to flood my brain. Oh, I'm happy, because we all crave interaction, all of us. The other part of it is that your loved one craves interaction. They really do. And that in a socially acceptable environment, the things about daycares and partnering up with other people that are caregivers is that you cannot worry about whether or not spaghetti's not hitting the mouth and it's hitting the floor instead. It's like if you have other people that you're surrounding yourself with in those social engagement, is that it is going to be a need that is always there. I can't say enough about social engagement for yourself and for your loved ones. So we talk about, a lot of times when we're talking about the things that can make you healthier, we talk about whether it's evidence-based or not. And it says on this that there's the least amount of research in this area. However, there's some research that indicates that connecting with others socially may benefit the brain health and actually delay the onset of dementia. As caregivers, what happens with us? We get isolated in our homes, and if we're suffering from depression, we're pulling back too. So we're isolating ourselves because we're overwhelmed, and we're pulling back because we are depressed. So we're really depriving ourselves of the good juju that comes from social engagement. Go to the next slide, please. So this is what we know. These are what the studies are showing us. Social engagement is associated with living longer with fewer disabilities. Staying engaged in the community offers you an opportunity to maintain your skills. Remaining both socially and mentally active may support brain health and possibly delay the onset of dementia. So this gives us some ways that we can socially engage. Again, part of the reason that all of us are here, all of the professionals are involved, is to help get you plugged into those areas of social engagement. In addition to support groups, there are lots of social activities that are out there. That are purposefully set up to support you in keeping your connections alive. And you're gonna need that even more so as caregivers, because you're gonna be fighting the other things. So whatever we can do to help you get connected, let us know. Let us know, we'll let you know what's out there. So let's put it all together now. Again, I didn't think this would be a surprise to anybody, but just to constantly reiterate this, because we need reminders. You're caring for other people. You need reminders to take care of yourself. Get moving, eat right, keep your mind active, and stay connected with others. Combining all 4 of those areas of life will help you achieve maximum benefits.
Recently, at the Alzheimer Association International Conference, there was a study reported of the results of a large clinical trial that was done in the Scandinavian countries. And in this trial, they took half the people in the trial and they adjusted their exercise level, their diet, their social engagement, and their mental stimulation. They developed programs for each one of those variables, changed all of those for the people that were in the test group, and the control group just lived as it had been. There's a tremendous benefit to doing studies where we make changes and observe after the fact. That's a much stronger study than just observing people and trying to make judgments after life has changed for them. To my mind, one of the things that this has done is that it's changed the force of recommendation that we might make around the benefit of these interventions for prevention of Alzheimer's disease and brain health. And the fact is that I think it's moved it from possibly exercise, diet adjustments, social engagement, mental stimulation are useful, to probably. And that's a big change and makes it easier for people to make those kinds of adjustments for the benefit of their future health.
So what we're talking about is taking a holistic approach. Taking a look at all those 4 areas of life and combining them. Start small. Begin today. Start small and build quick. Do things that you enjoy and stick with. Make healthy choices. Make a plan and get support from others. This can all be done in collaboration.